Right, I kind of messed up, and to be honest, I really need your help.
Please.
Now, it's definitely not as bad or as dramatic as it sounds, but it's worth talking about, so we might as well talk about it. Right, we're near about, if not already, halfway through my gap year, and I thought right now is a perfect opportunity for me to talk about what I've struggled with, and also what my course of action is for the rest of my gap year, so sit back and enjoy. Right, let's start off right at the beginning.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Not that beginning, I mean this one.
In the beginning.
Hi, my name is Santosh. I was an 18-year-old fresh out of school and I was very excited. I had eyes full of hopes and dreams. I was very hungry to achieve lots, and so in came the Gap Year project. A project I started that was not only supposed to document my gap year, but also provide insight to different career paths through two main things, which were my website and my interviews. Now, starting off, I pretty confidently set myself a wham number of tasks, and I knew a few things right off the bat. The first thing I knew going into my gap year was that I wouldn't be able to complete all the things that was on the list, and that was completely fine. And to be honest, I still think it's completely fine. See, whenever I see someone and I'm telling them why I set myself this number of tasks, I tell them I'd rather do 60% of 20 tasks than 100% of 10. See, immediately it sounds like simple math, right? I mean, 60% of 20 is 12 and 100% of 10 is obviously 10. But that is not necessarily the case. And that's actually where I ran into my first issue. See, balancing this many tasks, when you look at them from a 2D perspective, might seem a little bit easy. But all of a sudden you realize that your tasks have their own tasks, that then have their own tasks, which probably also then have their own tasks. And all of a sudden that dot that you thought you saw is actually an arrow coming straight towards you, and there's not much you can do about it. Right, let's just go through the list and pick out one at random. Let's think finding an apprenticeship. Right. First thing you do when you want to get an apprenticeship is obviously you have to write a CV, which was not a problem at all. I mean, I wrote my CV, I had a few people read over it, and all was good. Next thing I did was obviously apply. And applying again wasn't that much of an issue. I mean, I had to make a cover letter here and this, but again, not that big of a problem. But after you do your applications, depending on the amount of applications you do, most of them you'd have to do an assessment for. And that's where things get a little bit tricky. See, after I did my assessments, then I had interviews. And I mean, I'll show you my calendar now. For like the last few weeks, I've had an interview every single day, and it's getting a little bit hectic. See, doing the interviews isn't really that big of a problem. It's what doing the interviews brings that is sometimes a bit of an issue for me. See, if I do an interview, I have to spend pretty much all morning preparing for it, and then obviously doing the interview. And then afterwards, if it didn't go to plan, I have to deal with that mentally for the rest of the day, and then go on to the next one the day after. And when you kind of stack that up over a few days, or even a few weeks in my case, it kind of has a little bit of an impact on you. Now, in no way, shape or form am I complaining. Getting an apprenticeship was obviously one of the things that was on my list.
Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
And it's not something that I'm upset about doing at all. In fact, I'm happy about applying because it's teaching me a lot of stuff. But when you kind of do that and then have to balance a lot of other tasks on your list, it kind of gets a little bit heavy. And that's kind of put me in a predicament of if it's worth prioritizing it this much or if it's not. And looking at it from a logical perspective, it obviously is. I mean, once I've got an apprenticeship, for one, I'm sorted for the rest of my gap year. I can do all the other stuff on my list, but also I'm sorted after my gap year. And that's, for me, probably more important than getting the other stuff done. Right, the next issue I ran into is where the I kind of messed up part really makes itself clear. See, I went into my gap year with this number of tasks as I'm someone who kind of gets bored when they're doing one thing at once. I know it sounds crazy, but I actually work better when I'm handling multiple projects. Take my school time, for example. During school, I kind of got bored of just studying and I decided to take up a reselling thing on the side. And that worked really well for me. In fact, I'd even argue that it helped me study because I was motivated to finish my studies and then go and do something else. See, I say in theory it's not bad because if you're doing multiple things at once and you're actually able to continue to do them, that's a great thing. But for me, I found that after I started doing something, I struggled to come back to it at a later date. And the combination of procrastination and then physical mental factors kind of drained away my motivation. And then when you think, I wake up and then I prepare for my interview, I do it, I have lunch, and then I have a couple of hours and then I go to the gym. All of a sudden, it feels like I had less and less time to do stuff. And that's because I was doing other things that was on my list. And the whole thing kind of turned into a bit of a downward spiral. But we moved. Right, now we're going to talk about what I think I've struggled with the most. And that is handling change. See, this whole thing in itself is a massive change for me. And if you know me personally, you know I'm very strict about certain things. Like, for example, I literally won't leave the house or go anywhere without my water bottle. But as much as I'm someone who needs certain stuff to be a certain way, I'm someone who loves change and the opportunity it brings for me to grow as a person. But when I set myself the goals I did, I left very little to no margin for error at all. And I also didn't factor in if things didn't go to plan or if my plans even changed. And to be honest, pretty much all the changes that I've gone through in my gap year have been negative because I left myself that very small amount for error. I'd say the first kind of change that kind of affected me was back in October when I was in India. We had a little bit of a health scare in the family, and then as soon as I came back to the UK, my reselling completely flopped, or it didn't go as I expected it to go, which was a massive shock for me because I've been doing this for years and I did everything correctly. But for some reason, it just didn't seem to work. And then in between all of that, I was obviously getting rejected from jobs I applied to, which now I understand it's not deep at all, but back then it was kind of discouraging for me. Now that's just listing a couple, but I'd say one thing that kind of subconsciously affected me the most is the problems I've developed in my wrist. See, if you do know me personally, then you also know that I'm very, very injury prone, but I also have spent a lot of time not doing exercise due to my injuries in the past. See, at first I fractured my spine and then I dislocated my shoulder. And over the course of my gap year, obviously since my right shoulder is still a little bit weaker, when I'm doing my pressing movements, my wrist kind of compensates for that kind of weakness. And that's meant I've developed a tendonitis in my wrist, and that's caused me a lot of pain and discomfort. And it's also meant I couldn't pursue my gym goals as much as I wanted to, which is why I haven't really posted a benching video in a long time, because I haven't actually benched at all. I literally physically can't. And I also did re-dislocate my shoulder the other day, which sucks. But it's stuff like this that's really put me off. Like, I haven't trained at all this week and the week before as well, which I kind of take as a blessing in disguise because it's meant I could focus a little bit more on interviews. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem to be going in the way that I wanted it to go. But one thing I've noticed a lot, and this is to do with my faith, is that regardless of whatever I go through, it always seems to fall into place one way or another. Like I just told you, it seemed to be like a blessing in disguise that I was not able to train, but I was able to focus on my interviews. Everything just always falls into place. And that's definitely one thing that I'm really grateful for, but sometimes I just wish it go to plan as well. Now, the main reason I'm actually making this video is not just to ask for help, but also to hold myself accountable and be transparent. See, I always find that holding myself accountable and doing stuff like this motivates me to be a little bit better and make positive changes. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Now, if you have watched this far and you are wondering why the hell I'm talking about I need your help, hear me out for 2 minutes. Now, obviously, one of the things that I wanted to do on my gap year was interview people about their career paths, so I could help other people make the right decisions about what career they want to go into. Now, after I did post that video, which was in fact with my father, I got a lot of positive feedback and a lot of people told me that they wanted to see more interviews. Now, I am really eager and keen to keep this going, and that's why I need your help. Down below, you'd find a link to a Google form which I made, which asks a little bit about your career and if you'd be open to be doing an interview. Now, by the end of my gap year, I'd like to have as many interviews on this channel as possible so I can help you guys make the right decisions about where you want to go in the future. But to do that, I do need your help. So please take 2 minutes to fill out the Google form. I promise it won't take that long. And also share it with as many people as you can. The more people, the better. Now, in the end, I am doing this for you guys. So I'd really appreciate if you could help me so I can help you. So yeah, the Google form is linked below. Please take a little bit of time, fill it out, share it. Please. I really want to get on with interviews, and it'd really help if you guys could help me with that. Now, my gap year is nowhere near done, and as much as I've talked about the bad things, I could probably make a similar video about all the good things that I've done throughout my gap year. And in fact, now I'm thinking about it, I might actually do that. See, I've made significant progress in so many of my tasks, and I've met so many amazing people throughout the journey. I'm definitely far from finished, and I know God has a lot more in store for me over the next few months. But as for now, I'm going to keep pushing through, and I'm going to keep going with my mission. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all for today's video. I really thought it'd be interesting for me to talk about a couple things I struggled with, and I probably will be making a video after this about the opposite side of the spectrum where things have been going positively. But one thing is for certain, and that is that I will accomplish my goals one day, regardless of how hard I'm finding them now.